Yeah, so we are going also to be live streaming you all, and we have got with us NGO specialists who are joining us. Chancellor to say.
Thank you so much, colleagues.
May I turn on the recording?
Yes, please. Go ahead, Peter.
I think you have to give me permission.
All right, I will do so in a minute. Just a moment, please.
Thank you.
You should mute us.
Yeah. If you could also please mute your microphones, that would be lovely. So everything should be okay now. So in a minute we start recording the presentations, and I'm glad that you are all here. Welcome to this conference, which is
recording in progress.
The conference theme, which is Ujamaa, Ubuntu, New Pan-Africanisms, and the Future of World Peace. And so I'm going to now invite the Vice Chancellor of this, Professor.
Thank you so much, George. Thank you so much, colleagues, wherever you are. I find it such a great pleasure to be part of this conference, especially when the main theme is peace. Taking into consideration how peace is seen in terms of Ujamaa, in terms of Ubuntu, and many other things. Well, I understand we are living in a time where the question of peace is quite vital. But sometimes, if you look at the concept of peace in the way it is being conceived in many places, peace would always mean that actually you should have equal amount of arms to maintain peace. So peace with armaments is not peace without arms. And actually the arms that are discussed here, the arms which actually have a mass-killing capacity. I just wonder whether with such armaments you can maintain peace, because we're prepared for most of the time. We see what is taking place in various parts of the world, where arms are being used, where groups which are supposed to be peacekeeping forces, we just wonder what kind of peace they're keeping when actually they have arms all around them and so on. So maybe we should revisit the concept of peace, so that at least we look at the whole thing from many values, from European values, from Asian values, from American values, and maybe also from African values. We had peace, which meant that actually people would always meet together, agree that actually whatever hostilities that we have are seized, so that we can always create a situation which would always attract and encourage cooperation and friendship. But these days, when you look at what actually the big powers are doing, is simply the industry for manufacturing mass-killing weapons are the ones who actually are determining what should be peace. And peace is the sale of the arms and nothing like that. So maybe that's why we should come to the issue of Ubuntu. It's very important indeed in the sense that we say, okay, fine. I am because we are because I am. Which means that if one of us gets hurt, then the entire community gets hurt. Therefore, since you want to preserve yourself, then you preserve the community as well. So peace has at least a down-to-earth meaning. It's not actually the kind of peace that we have today, whereby people believe in arms, people believe in the business of arms, people believe in money. But can you bring peace with money? You cannot bring peace with money. You bring peace with those people actually who are committed to making sure that at least there is some kind of tranquility within society, people working together with specific objectives to improving their way of life. So I understand that this has been discussed in Russia, and this is actually major. Apparently, the concept of Ubuntu includes to some extent the Ujamaa concept as well. And you cannot have Ubuntu if you don't have peace. And we cannot have Ujamaa if we don't have peace, because we have to make sure that at least our interests are put together. We mind about the community and we want to move forward peacefully. You cannot develop one way or the other if there is no peace. But then again, it's not the kind of peace that we learn from our colleagues who always believe that with arms you can always, maintain peace. So with these few remarks, let me declare this particular meeting as well.
Thank you so much, Vice Chancellor of Central University, Professor Matt Meyer, who is the Secretary General of the International Peace Research Association, for his remarks. Welcome, Matt.
Thank you. Vice Chancellor, Dr. Mutulemo, all protocols observed. It's so wonderful to be here in Mwanza after literally years and months and weeks and days and even hours, 48 hours ago, seeming like it might not be possible. So I come here as the Secretary General of International Peace Research Association. We're the world's oldest and largest consortium of peace studies professors, researchers and scholars, students and community leaders. I come here with many friends and new friends we're making, including the Secretary General of the Latin American Peace Research Council, all the way from Colombia. We have here colleagues from around the continent. I think he's washing up because we just got here off the road. Some of us didn't even have a time to put on our suits, but we're trying to look somewhat presentable. But a colleague from Western Sahara, from one of the still remaining direct colonies on the continent, and we support the struggle of the Western Saharan people for their independence. And we came here in numbers in Arusha to convene a conference that seemed like it was an extension of something we've been doing for years. So I'm going to tell a little story about that process so that all of you in the room here in Mwanza and all of you who have been part of the great Zooms of George and Project Mama, a little bit of this history and bring it to the present. The conference that just took place in Arusha was really a conference of a special variety for two reasons. One reason the Vice Chancellor spoke to, the themes of Ujamaa, Ubuntu, and the developing of new Pan-Africanisms for an idea about world peace, not just African peace, not just regional peace, not just an end to war, but an end to structural violence and the violence and wars of economic deprivation. And that conference was also historic because it was really produced not by an organization or two or three. It was produced by 6 networks. It was really an incredible networking of networking spaces. And I think many of you, because you're aware of Dr. Mutolemo's work, know that he is himself a networker of networkers. Many of us get several emails of the same thing every week forever. But Project Mama, and I'm not going to attempt to say it in Swahili, although maybe next year I will. But Project Mama is a space of bringing together people for these weekly webinars and more. An extraordinary feat that George has championed with the help of others. But in addition to that, we had the African Peace Builders Network of the Social Science Research Council. We had PAN-PEN, the Pan-African Nonviolence and Peace Builders Network. We had AFPREA, which is the regional association of my organization, an autonomous African association, the African Peace Research and Education Association, AFPREA, that holds conferences every 2 years somewhere on the continent to look at one issue or another of peace, human rights, and development. And it was 2 years ago that a Tanzanian we know and love, came to the last conference held in the newest country on the planet, South Sudan, in Juba, with a solid idea and a crazy idea. The solid idea was that Tanzania should be the site of the next conference 2 years hence. We're talking now these last couple of days about where we'll be 2 years from now. That's a natural process. The crazy idea, completely logistically improbable, something that really a conference organizer should not be thinking about, was that it would not be a conference in one place. In fact, because of the special and important history of Tanzania, because of Mwalimu Julius Nyereri's legacy for the continent and for the world, because of the contacts and the connections and the people who were thinking about helping out, we should actually have a moving feast of a conference. We had our friends in TCDC in Arusha. They would host us. Of course, we have all of you in Mwanza, St. Augustine's, and here St. Dominic, and the Archdiocese that would host us. But then we also had the land. And several days ago in opening the Arusha conference, I talked about the specialness of this land, which I don't have to mention to those of you Tanzanians or East Africans in the room. But for those who haven't been, and for those who are coming to us through Zoom or through the live stream, Tanzania is unique, not in the specialness of its land, although it does have Africa's highest mountain, Kilimanjaro, that some of us saw as we were flying in. Not because of just the Serengeti or these amazing, I'm sorry, I'm going to decline your person who wants to, it's a very busy man, this George. Anyway, the fact of the matter is, all of these things make Tanzania special, but perhaps most special of all is this grassroots idea, this bottom-up idea that governments should be in the service of the people. And in Mwalimu's case, and the legacy that's followed him, it wasn't just about government's economic, political, and social, cultural, linguistic policies being in the service of the people, but that all the people of the South, needed to unite and cooperate to free the shackles of all the people of the North, not just the US imperialists, who have our own cross to bear in terms of the ways in which we have and continue to exploit the peoples and the land throughout Africa, but all of the imperialist and sub-imperialist powers, then and now. So this idea of South-South cooperation, South-South unity, a people-to-people development of your land for your progress, is a very Nyrerian notion. And so I guess it should not be surprising that it was also Dr. Mutulemo's notion. It was, however, a notion that would make any conference organizer lose their hair. And the fact of the matter is, up until 48 hours ago, it seemed impossible. But the fact of the matter is, we're here, some of us, again, just quickly redressed from being in a dusty van, having gone from Arusha early the next morning after the close of that conference to meet with people from Ujamaa CRT, the Maasai empowerment group that's been doing work to build those communities throughout the country, and that has been a champion for environmental and climate crisis and natural rights, as well as people's rights throughout the world. We then went through the Serengeti to drive here and saw the incredible land and its animals and its plant life and its peoples. We then, this morning, were in Butiama. We met with Mwalimu Nyereri's son and visited his gravesite at the museum. And through all of this process, with UNESCO connections and our own connections and conversations in the car that we'll tell you about later, we made it to Mwanza to have this seminar, which we're calling a seminar because it began to become almost too ambitious to call the whole thing a conference. It's true, not everyone in Arusha made it here. But it's also true that this vision worked. And we're here because it worked. And we're here because it worked because of a crazy idea that was in some ways a Nigerian idea. It was in some ways an idea about how we can do things ourselves, even if it seems improbable, impossible, even if there'll be bumps along the road, even if not everyone can come with us every step along the way. But if we continue doing the work, and if we press forward, we can have peace, we can have justice, and we must do it ourselves for one another. It's a tremendous honor and privilege as someone from the global north to be back in Tanzania after almost 3 decades away, and to thank all of you for this host, this space, and this vision and hope for a future of world peace. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Matmai, for these wonderful words of introduction to this conference. And now we are going to go into a remarks from Sister Teresia Wamuyu Washira. She's the co-president of Pax Christi International. And she wished really to be here with us, but she couldn't make it because of various other obligations.
So just a note to everyone not in the room. We don't know exactly how it's going to work for people on Zoom or on live stream, but we will have a link to this video. If you don't see it, it's very short, 5 minutes. If you don't see the video in the next 5 minutes, you'll all see it. But if you don't see it in the next 5 minutes, we'll send you the link and sit tight. The rest of the program will follow soon. I think our tech people here have worked it out that it's going to work here. This is Sister Teresa Wamuyu from Pax Christi International.
Well, here we are. It's a great honor, as always, and a pleasure to introduce Sister Teresa Wamuyu Wachira, the co-president of Pax Christi International. As we close our days together, some of us remember warmly as 2 years ago, Sister Teresa began our time in Juba, South Sudan. And so closing us now with her message and a message from Pax Christi. My dear sister, what an honor and pleasure to be with you.
Thank you, Matt, and it's a pleasure to see you again after 2 years. But I've been journeying with you and the group on WhatsApp. So peace to you all gathered here today in my neighboring country, Tanzania. I salute and bless the women, men, children, and the youth of Tanzania for their warm welcome. Thank you to all the organizers of this great gathering for the choice of the theme and for the organization. Allow me now share my few thoughts and reflections on the theme of this conference, for which you gathered, shared, collaborated, and synergized. This comes at a time when we are witnessing and experiencing mass atrocities across the globe that have led to thousands of deaths of people and other forms of life, widespread migration of people, influx of internally displaced persons, brutality of children, and raping of women as weapons of war. This is also within a backdrop of calls on the international community to call for a ceasefire, especially in the case of Israel and Palestine. Also calls to address the situations of violations and humanitarian crisis in Goma, DRC, and many other parts of the world where the people, the ordinary people, are suffering different violations. I want to engage with the discussions you have had during these few days. And one of them, I would invite us to engage and collaborate and synergize on the issues that are affecting our people today. We look at the extraction of minerals in different parts of our world. For instance, in Latin America, in Peru, in Africa, and other places. We also look at the issues of what I call the, looking at the other person as an enemy. Where we have, so long as somebody is different from me, then I look at them as enemies. So racism is based on that, and it can spread in different forms. So we need to engage with that because it is a reality in our world today. For instance, it's not only about color, it could be about race, about engagement, for instance, the poor and the rich, the women and men, youth and adults. So racism, we need to engage in different forms. So the negativity about the other is an area that I would assume that we continue that engagement. I've just come from the meeting of the civil society, the 2024 civil society that was in the UN in Nairobi, and we were engaging on similar issues, looking at what is our current issues today. What are the areas our people are suffering today? What do we need to engage in? What debates do we need to discuss with each other? What are the discourses, the political discourses that we need to address? For instance, the shrinking of the spaces for democratic engagement. We need to discuss that, where the civil society are not given the space to express themselves and express the situations on the ground. Also, we need to be having discussions around the African security architecture, like looking at what issues are we grappling with in Africa and how can we address them. There is a tendency to use militaristic approaches, but are those approaches actually responding to the needs? Because we are seeing a rise in militia groups, locally and globally financed. So how do we address that situation today? Also, we need to engage with issues of the governments, United Nations, and the civil society. How do they synergize? So it's not about the government addressing issues or the civil society or the UN. We need to engage with that. And one of the areas that I would like us to engage in is the whole issue of veto power. It is engraved in the United Charter. However, when you look at the veto power, sometimes there have been abuse of that, which has necessitated to some of the issues being aggravated. For instance, when you look at the whole issue of Israel-Palestine occupation, it has gone on for too long. Yet there was an agreement of the two states. Why has that gone on for too long? Why are the wars in Africa going on for too long? And we don't hear about them. Look at the war in Goma right now in the DRC Congo. We don't hear about those wars, but they are there. People are dying. And so that's where we are calling on the international community to speak out. And many other areas that I may not be able to discuss because of the short time. Matt told me I have 10 minutes, so I have to stick to those 10 minutes. And then, therefore, what I would like us to be thinking, even from here, because this is not the end, the engagement has to continue. How, for instance, do we explain and package our African agenda, the issues, for instance, of electoral justice, of intractable conflicts that have crippled almost different parts of Africa, issues of economy, issues of the interactions, and that's what this gathering was about, Ubuntu and Ujamaa. That's the whole issue of coming together, people sharing and respecting other people. That is the Ubuntu we are talking about. The issue, and that actually is based on African culture, by the way, because in Africa, harmony is very, very key. That communities come together. If there is some issues to be sorted out, people don't necessarily have to fight. They form a group, they come under a tree and discuss and dialogue about issues and try to resolve. And then after that, they'll have a drink together, a meal together to seal that. So that's the normal way. And therefore, that's what we are asking, that communities will engage in bringing people together to dialogue, to talk, as opposed to using military ways of addressing issues. That's not going to solve anything. As they say, if you take up my eye and I take off yours, we'll have a blind society. So that is a call. Then I would like also us to have to create spaces for spaces that will balance the traditional and new realities, to engage with children and young people. Because you have the digital world, but how is that digital world being embraced within the traditions? And in Africa, we are seeing a lot of young people having their own journeys and adults having their own journeys. Where do we synergize? Because the way forward is for us to find ways of synergizing this traditional and the current realities, because our young people are more on the digital world. So does the digital world inform the traditional? Because in Africa, we have to handle that. We cannot escape from that. So this has been an opportunity for us to engage in those areas, but also this will inform the policies, because it's no use us meeting and engaging and talking if it does not translate to policies that are going to change our realities. And so I would say that we are in a very good position, and this is a kairos moment for us to amplify the voices of nonviolence, the voices of the people. And the voices of the people is those that I'm calling the non-violent voices, the silent voices that are not heard. It's up to us to engage those voices and to bring them to the fore, not to speak for them, but to allow them to speak for themselves. And I believe that's what is going to change. So it is our duty as we are engaging because we are talking about, our whole thing is about Ubuntu. Ubuntu means everybody has a space to speak and speak in your own voice. And so that's a challenge and an invitation for us to continue these conversations at the different levels where we engage, so that we can respond to another world. We are talking about another world, a just world, and a just world cannot be dealt with in the current tools and the current voices we are using, voices of the drums of war. We cannot address the current issues with drums of war. We need to have drums of peace. We need to have tools of peace. We need to have non-violent tools that will address the current violent world that we are experiencing. And I think we can do that because we have the energy and we have the collaboration among us to do that. So I would like to end there and say that we are in the right space because the topic we have chosen, the thing we have chosen actually does bring spark in people's hearts, because people at the moment kind of are looking for hope. Where can they find the seed of hope? Where can they find the spark? Just, when the fire is going out, people look for that spark that they can ignite, and we are that spark. We are that spark, and this is the moment for us to spark that in people, so that we offer hope in a world that currently is actually looking hopeless. So I would like to end on that. All may have life and have it more abundantly, and that's what that Africa, and it has all the potential.
Teresia Wamuyo Bashira, the co-president of the Pax Christi International. And now we're going to move to the next, to be able to present to you this book, and you can all see it. The title is Peace Studies for Sustainable Development in Africa, Conflicts and Peace-Oriented Conflict Resolution. And this book is a collection of chapters, mainly from African scholars, but also scholars beyond Africa. And it came about as a result of a long time discussion amongst Catholic university vice chancellors representing their own universities, that in Africa, since we've got so many conflicts, the time has come for us to research and also act to make sure that peace in Africa can prevail. And it was decided, particularly in 2017, that all Catholic universities in Africa should have at least a department of peace studies. Well, for me, then at that time, I was elected Executive Secretary of the Association of Catholic Universities and Higher Institutes of Africa and Madagascar, APUYAM or ASUNICAM. And I saw a list of resolutions. And I thought, what can I do? Because I've got to implement them, or at least, champion this or lead this. But I wasn't really an expert in peace studies, because I'm still a student. I'm not near an expert in peace studies. But I knew I had a colleague of mine in Germany, Professor Egon Spiegel, and I contacted him and he said, okay, this is a good idea. We can work together on this. And then, because he thought about his own colleague, Professor Liu Chen from Nanjing University in China. And so he invited both of us to Germany. And then, of course, he invited Lester Kurtz. We can see him online. Hi, Les. What a pleasure seeing you. I'm here launching our book. So I'm not alone, actually. So this is really amazing. And was published by Springer International. I'm not going to go through all the 700 pages of this book, but for sure I can try maybe. No. But I'm sure you can also see it, read it online. So my honor and pleasure, my task today is to launch this book today, and in a special way, I would like to do two things. First of all, I would like to present this book to my Vice Chancellor. Charity begins at home. Since the Augustine University of Tanzania has turned 25 years since its establishment, but also the International Federation of Catholic Universities has turned this year 100 years. So I want to give this book to you for our university library so that our students, some of them are here today, and the future ones can read Peace and Sustainable Development. Thank you very much. And we have, you may have a seat, please.
One more photo to take.
One more photo? Okay.
When you do the next presentation.
Yes. And now, through these four editors of this book, Liu Cheng, Igor Spiegel, and Lester Kurtz, we formed a network known as the Africa Peace and Development Network. In Swahili, Mtandao wa Amani na Maendeleo Afrika Mama. I'm sure you can repeat that, Matt.
Tomorrow.
So, we wrote this book, we edited this book, and the person who wrote the foreword was none other than Brother Matt. So we thank you so much, Matt. You've been journeying with us. And actually, I think without you, it would have been so difficult for me. This conference probably would not have taken place because I provided this idea. I asked members of the Africa Peace Research Society, we had to have your blessings at the. What a pleasure to offer you this copy. Yeah, because I don't have enough copies, but I really wish that each one could have a copy of this. Okay, I can see Eric Ching. It's actually my laptop. It's restarting.
Okay, so we can switch to the Zoom there and the live stream.
It's
I just have to say,
But that's what I should.
So Eric, nice to see you. We had a bit of a technical issue
I've seen
here,
it like this.
and it's my honor and pleasure to
I'm sorry.
welcome our brother Eric Chinje, who is joining us from the States. Who will first say a little bit more about himself, and he's going to launch a book which is called